Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Yes.
That man right there was Milton Friedman. He was an American economist who won the Nobel Prize 2 years before that little town hall meeting we just watched a snippet of. Believed by many to be the most prominent advocate of the free market economy in the 1900s. So I believe it's safe to say that man knew what he was talking about. We know from looking back at history, inflation doesn't just go away. It took the government 9 years to get inflation under control in the 60s, and in the 70s another 5 years. In today's video, I'll be looking at inflation today in America and what both sides are saying is causing it to be so high. If you would though, help us out by growing this community, subscribe, and most importantly, leave a comment with your opinion, please. Let's check it out. Alright, so here's the current US inflation rates from 2000 to 2022. And as you can see here on our little chart, it don't look like it's at the right scale. See, we got all these, just barely over 2, mostly under 2, and then bam, 7, 8.3. It says the annual inflation rate for the United States is 8.3% for the 12 months ended April 2022, after rising 8.5% previously, according to U.S. Labor Department data published May 11th. The next inflation update is scheduled for release on June 10th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It will offer the rate of inflation over the 12 months ended May 2022. The chart and table below display annual U.S. inflation rates for calendar years from 2000 to 2012 to 2022. For prior years, we can check a historical. I'll leave the link in the description in case y'all want to go and check it out. But yeah, this is just so we can get an idea of, it ain't always been like this, you know what I'm saying? Hey, here we go, $40 billion Ukraine aid bill.
On this vote,
$40 billion.
the yeas are 81. The nays
81
are 11. 3/5
to
of the
11.
senators duly chosen and
Seems we
sworn,
got a little hiccup
having
there.
voted in the affirmative, this
81 to 11. There's hardly anybody saying no to this. Obviously, we're all about spending money, as long as we're not sending our troops over there, right? $40 billion. We could send troops over there for that price. We had a sustained effort in Afghanistan that cost us just a little bit more than that on average for the 19-20 years that we were there. So on average it was about 50 billion a year. Go ahead and check the math on that. I don't need to get too far into it, but we're giving them $40 billion, and for what? We're not giving them the vehicles that they need. They need those planes if they're going to win the war. If not, we're just doing another proxy war, and we're just going to keep shoveling out money to these guys so they can cover their own ass, right? There ain't no American troops over there. This is just a sustainment, just to keep them going. $40 billion. Ain't nobody saying no. 11 to 81. Just something to think about when we're talking about spending money. Alright, so next up we got a video from CNN and then a video from Fox News. Both given different reasons why inflation is so bad. So let's check it out, and then of course don't forget, leave a comment on what you believe is causing this, or maybe which side you agree with the most.
To try. All right, let's get into all that now. Matt Egan, thank you very much. And bring in, for reaction, CNN economics and political commentator Catherine Rampell and business reporter Mark Stewart. Mark's sitting here next to me, so let me get your quick reaction first.
Well, there's no question that the Fed had to do something aggressive, I think, for all of those reasons that Matt mentioned. But I think it's important to keep in mind, Victor, that this inflation equation isn't just about increased demand and a strained supply chain. Right. Not even the war in Ukraine. There's a bigger issue that many economists feel, and that is labor. People are asking for more money. They are getting more money. Companies have no choice but to comply with that. That costs more. In addition, in the number of baby boomers who have been retiring, particularly in 2020 when the pandemic hit, that number has rapidly accelerated. That leaves companies with a need for more workers. That too increased costs. So there are many different layers to this, but there are some significant cost conundrums, specifically when we look at labor, in addition to everything else.
We'll get
so it's labor. Labor's the big problem here.
Record numbers in March of people losing their jobs in just a moment. But Catherine, let me come out to you and on the question of timing. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, says that the Fed waited too long to raise rates. What do you say?
I think with the benefit of hindsight, probably even the Fed would agree with that. Basically, they were much too optimistic, like many of us last year, about the pace of inflation going forward. They thought that it would be transitory. They thought that it would come down on its own.
They're still saying it's transitory.
Unwound themselves, and that's not what happened. Instead, they waited a while, and instead, inflation just continued going up on its own. So now they're in this position, as Matt laid out, where they have to raise rates much more aggressively than they likely would have had to do had they begun this process earlier. In order
they raised this interest rate 0.5%. This is a little bit older video.
Mark, the potential for
back at the beginning of the month,
cooling things off just enough.
We'll see when June 10th rolls around if it helped.
It's
as much as
I think that
they're hoping.
The conventional feeling among economists, and it's been strengthened.
Stay tuned for the update on June 10th.
A recession may be inevitable. I think one way to think about this is a doctor treating a patient with a very serious condition. You do something aggressive, but there may be some unpleasant side effects in the aftermath. The economy may be the same way. Raise interest rates, perhaps deal with a recession, but in the bigger picture of things, it may benefit because that will give the economy a shock, and therefore that will reduce inflation.
If a recession is coming, are you seeing great recession? Are you seeing early 2000s, short, shallow recession?
So the thing about a recession, the textbook example is when we see 2 quarters, 6 months without economic growth. As we saw early on in the pandemic, we went into a recession, but it only lasted a few months. So I think that is the hope, that you do something strong and sudden, have some hardship, but then we see a rebound.
Catherine, let me ask you, what do you think? Is a recession inevitable now? And if so, how deep of a decline?
I don't think a recession is inevitable. I do think that the risks of recession
back when it was still up
quite a bit in the past few
33,000.
because we've gotten hit with a lot of
she's not that high no more,
including these
COVID-related
shutdowns.
So basically, they're saying we're asking for too much money, getting paid too much, got people retiring, leaving the workforce, so they got to hire more people, and everybody wants to be paid more, and that's the reason why inflation is so high. We'll see what the other guy's got to say.
Ned Ryan is the CEO of American Majority, and he joins us. Ned, great to see you tonight. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Will.
Sadly, I think we have to ask the question that's probably atop everyone's mind. It's bad, but how bad can it get?
No, I don't think we're anywhere near the bottom, sadly, Will. When you hear Biden saying that his solution to solving inflation is more government spending, more regulation, I mean, these will be jet fuel on inflation and continue to tank the economy. And so when people hear these as the solutions, that's why he's going down with Hispanics, independents. I would also point out, Will, that he's at 57% approval in the black community. And to give people perspective, right before Democrats got completely shellacked in the 2010 midterms, Obama was still over 90% with the black community. This thing is absolutely trending in the wrong direction. And the thing that I want to point out to people, though, is this, Will. These are not bugs. These are features of the Biden administration. The outrageous government spending, the terrible energy policy, all of these things are absolutely intentional. It's
We're
not as though
just
they're going to wake up
blaming
someday and go,
Biden. He's
oh, yeah,
spending
we
too
made
much.
mistakes. We're gonna solve
This
this.
is completely
These are intentional, and they're doing
not
it
even
in
the same
such a
narrative
way
that
to
CNN or
compel
the other
certain
guys are
behavior. When
giving
I hear
us.
people talk about $6 for a gallon
Biden's
of
spending
gas,
too much
I know many
money.
on the left
Not
would
we're
prefer
asking for too much
$10
money.
for a gallon of gas to compel people to actually start using renewables to force that behavior.
I think
on
we
people
learned something
who
about
were ruled by dangerous
what causes
rules, Will.
inflation
They
today.
do not care about the priorities of the American people.
And,
they do not care
CNN,
about anything
I mean,
that
that's
will
his
actually
old-
benefit the American
it's from
people,
the
because, quite
beginning of the
frankly, in
month.
their
It's
arrogance,
It's
they
one of the
don't think
most
the dirty
recent
little peasants
clips I
know
could
what's best for
find
them.
about inflation.
But Ned, you would
They're kind
think
of
that they do
staying away
care
from the
about
topic.
winning.
This
You
one
know,
from
all of
Fox
this
is
they're putting in
brand
place,
new
and
from
what you
earlier
suggested
today.
is that it's a feature, not a bug, would
So,
seem to get in the way of
somebody's
winning an election
ignoring,
in the midterms
you know,
or in
the-
2024. Where is their sense
While someone
of
else is
victory? Where is
picking
their
that,
sense of a self-correcting
picking that wound, not
mechanism,
letting it
Ned?
scab up. Someone else is letting it
I
scab
think
up.
they are so far gone. I mean, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, Will, in which the far left has really taken over the Democratic Party, and they really can't pivot out of this. And I think they're going to face some really harsh realities in this fall's midterms. I think Biden will be the 800-pound gorilla with cement boots on Democrats at the federal, state, and local level. And I think the interesting thing about this, Will, because they are in denial, I think that the devastating absolute annihilation they will face in 2022 will have long-term
Annihilation.
benefits for multiple election cycles,
Some strong
2024 and
words.
beyond.
These are
Remember that old Saturday
politicians.
Night
They
Live
like those
skit,
words.
Ned, with Will Ferrell, where they play
All right,
Give Me
that's
More
enough of this
Cowbell?
one.
Got
So
Christopher Walken.
basically, Fox News or the Republicans, at least those guys over there, they're blaming Biden himself. He's spending too much money, and yeah, I mean that's a very different opinion than what we're getting from the other guys. So I just wanted to show the difference of opinions for y'all. Make sure we're getting the full story.
Let me point out that the reason why we have too much printed spending and too much printing of money is because you people want it. You and I. We're citizens. We run this country.